Ladies and gentlemen, this is Al24 Midnight News coming to you live from the capital Algiers, and these are tonight's top stories. 12 soldiers killed in an armed attack in southwest Niger, and massive demonstrations in support of the military council in Burkina Faso after the failed coup attempt. And the United Nations warns of the worsening crisis in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo amid demands to accelerate the withdrawal of MONUSCO. To face the devastating earthquake effects, Moroccan authorities are rushing to obtain a loan worth $1.3 billion from the International Monetary Fund, and Fitch warns of worsening deficit as recovery costs increase. While NATO agrees to deploy additional forces and calls for an end to the escalation, Kosovo accuses Serbia of orchestrating the assassination of a police officer on its territory. The immigration debate has widened the split inside the European Union. Rome proposes an amendment. Germany abandoned its objection about the asylum law, and the United Nations reports that 2,500 migrants died attempting to enter Europe in 2023. Hello again and welcome. At least 12 Nigerian soldiers died and 7 were injured following a terrorist attack in the southwest of the country. According to Nigerian Ministry of Defense, around 100 terrorists were eliminated. The attack that took place on September 28 near the Kandaji Dam site on the Niger River was described by the ministry as vile and barbaric. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, according to a briefing by the UN mission MONUSCO to the Security Council, insecurity has continued to plague the country's eastern part that requires ongoing efforts to protect civilians. More in this report.
In the heart of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, a brewing storm of security challenges continues to cast a dark shadow over the region. Armed groups in the eastern DRC persist in their activities, adding fuel to the fire and worsening an already dire humanitarian crisis. A staggering 6 million people find themselves displaced, caught in the crossfire. A recent briefing to the Security Council by the UN mission MONUSCO shed light on the ongoing turmoil. The crisis sparked by the 23 March movement remains a powder keg, stoking anger among the population and straining relations between the DRC and Rwanda.
Allow me at the outset.
Insecurity has continued to plague the country's eastern part and requires ongoing efforts to protect civilians. The 23 March movement crisis continues to stoke frustration and anger among the population and to increase tensions between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. We renew our call to the March 23 movement to hand over their weapons and withdraw without delay.
Yet, amidst this chaos, authorities in the DRC have raised serious questions about MONUSCO's performance. They argue that the mission lacked the modern firepower needed to quell the armed movements in the eastern part of their country. Some even advocated for a swift withdrawal.
We learned that many of the unaccompanied foreign minors present in Italy leave the reception centers. Obviously, this puts them at great risk, and we know that this situation can obviously lead them to be exploited, but also to incur other risks, both to their health and to their development. We know that in their escape, they travel many kilometers across Italy. They try in many cases to reach other EU countries.
For a quarter of a century, the resource-rich eastern DRC has been a lawless frontier, a battleground where neighboring states engage in shadowy proxy wars. It's become a breeding ground for numerous rebel groups. Despite MONUSCO's tireless efforts over the years to protect civilians and aid the DRC government in its quest for stability and peace, success has remained frustratingly elusive.
In Cameroon, the army announced the elimination of dozens of members of the terrorist group Boko Haram in an ambush it set up in the north of the country, according to what security sources reported to the media. The same source added that the operation, which was led by Cameroonian Rapid Action Battalion forces, took place in Gozda Friket area in Goza, which the army forces expanding the operation near the Mandara Mountains in the far north of the country. This region has witnessed repeated attacks by terrorist groups Boko Haram since 2014. Former UN envoy to Western Sahara Christopher Rose, or rather emphasized the need for stronger international pressure on Morocco to break the deadlock in the UN-led political process in the Western Sahara. He spoke at a symposium organized by the Swedish Parliamentary Group for Friendship with Western Sahara, where participants stressed the importance of resolving the conflict to ensure the Sahrawi people's rights to self-determination and freedom. The International Monetary Fund's Executive Board on Thursday approved $1.32 billion 18-month loan from its new Resilience and Sustainability Facility to help Morocco bolster its resilience to climate-related disasters, the fund said in a statement. The North African country had requested funds from the IMF's new trust well before the devastating earthquake that struck in Morocco's high Atlas Mountains on September 8, killing more than 2,900 people. The approval, first reported by Reuters, comes weeks after Morocco hosts the annual IMF and World Bank meetings in Marrakesh from October 9 to 15. In Africa still, Tunisian Foreign Minister Nabil Ammar arrived in South Africa to participate in the second round of political consultations between the two countries. The Tunisian Ministry of Foreign Affairs indicated that Ammar met at the Tunisian Embassy headquarters in Pretoria with officials from country's government, a number of members of Tunisian community residing in South Africa, and representatives of the private sector. UN envoy to Libya Abdullah Bathili reiterated the need for comprehensive elections in Libya, aiming to legitimize its political, military, and security institutions, positioning with the aspiration of the Libyan people. This call was made during consultation with European Union foreign policy official Joseph Borrell and the Vice President of the Union Commission. Bathili also urged a joint assessment of flood effects areas to ensure transparent reconstruction resources management.
Continuing my consultations with the European Union today in Brussels, I exchanged views with the Political and Security Committee, where we discussed the political process and the impacts of Storm Danielle. I welcome the long-term support provided by the European Union to the United Nations Support Mission in Libya and express my appreciation for the individual and collective contributions of European Union countries to search, rescue, and relief efforts. I stress the need to ensure accountability in the management of recovery and reconstruction resources. I renewed my call on the international community to speak with one voice in support of holding elections and unifying Libyan institutions in order to achieve sustainable peace.
More than 16,000 children have been displaced from areas affected by the recent storm in eastern Libya, according to the UN Nation Children Fund UNICEF. This displacement has resulted in a lack of basic services, including healthcare, education, and clean water, further endangering children's well-being. At least 7.1 million people, including an estimated 3.3 million children, have been displaced from their homes across Sudan, a figure that has nearly doubled since the country's deadly conflict began in mid-April. Sudan's conflict has reached a new low point, with the country now having the greatest number of internally displaced people on the planet. Away from Africa, now to the Middle East, the Zionist occupation authorities impose a comprehensive closure on the West Bank and closed the crossings with Gaza Strip until midnight from Saturday to Sunday. In anticipation of the Jewish holidays, the occupation authorities announced the imposition of closure on the West Bank and closure of the crossings with the Gaza Strip during what it called Sukkot, and stated that the closure begins at midnight on Friday and continues until midnight next Sunday. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry welcomed the vote of General Conference of the International Atomic Energy Agency in its 67th session on a draft resolution approving the official designation of the State of Palestine in the agency, in addition to granting it more rights and civil rights. The Foreign Ministry said it will continue its efforts for Palestine to obtain full civil rights to reach full membership in the International Atomic Energy Agency. Now, in Europe, tensions between Serbia and Kosovo flared up again after both sides started to trade blames over last Sunday attack when some 30 heavily armed men barricaded themselves in Orthodox monastery in northern Kosovo. The incident now is believed to be the worst since 2008.
An easy calm has returned to northern Kosovo after the last deadly attack. But while waiting for light to be shed on what really happened, tensions between Serbia and Kosovo have reignited. Both sides are trading blames.
There's no fightings. What is happening is an act by an aggressor state and self-defense by the Republic of Kosovo. We are defending our people, defending our sovereignty, our territorial integrity, peace and stability, and I would say stability not just in our country but in the region as well.
Serbia denied these allegations, saying it will investigate the events that led to a gun battle at a monastery in northern Kosovo.
On je taj koji je do svega ovoga doveo.
And why would this be beneficial for Belgrade? I dare anyone to explain this to me. What would be the idea? To destroy our position we have been building for a year and struggle and agree to various and almost impossible compromise variants? To destroy this in a day? That we want a war? No, Serbia does not want war.
Last Sunday, Banjica village witnessed what locals called a real little war. Throughout the day, fierce gunfire exchanges raged on between Kosovo police and roughly 30 heavy armed men holed up in a Serbian Orthodox monastery near the Serbian border. The standoff ended late that day when police regained control, but it came at a cost. 3 attackers and 1 police officer lost their lives.
Trauma. This is a big trauma for everyone here. Only maybe those who have some problems can say that this is not traumatic. But we are lucky that there were no civilian victims here. No one from our village was injured. Thank you God for this. I really don't know how we got away.
These latest hostilities add fuel to the already simmering political and diplomatic disputes that have plagued Serbia and Kosovo for decades in the Western Balkans and Europe. In response, NATO has decided to deploy additional troops to the Balkan region.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has ordered one of the top commanders of the Wagner military contractor to take charge of the volunteer units in Ukraine. The Kremlin said that the Russian president told Andriy Troshev that his task is to deal with the former volunteer units that could perform in Russia's special military operation in Ukraine.
You know what it is, how it works. You know what issues need to be resolved in advance so that combat work goes better and in the most successful manner. Regardless of the status of the person who performs or has performed combat missions, social guarantees for everyone should be absolutely the same. It makes no difference in what status a person fought and defended their homeland for the country and for the motherland.
Russian Ministry of Defense reported shooting down more than a dozen Ukrainian drones over the Russian regions of Belgorod, Kursk, and Kaluga. Russian authorities said earlier that 2 Ukrainian drones were destroyed over the neighboring Belgorod region. This comes at least 3 women were killed in bombing that hit residential areas of Kherson in southern Ukraine. Reports suggest that victims were hit while they were on the streets. Also, Russian Ministry of Defense said that Russian army operations during the period from September 24 to 29 resulted in the death of more than 1,700 Ukrainian soldiers, the destruction of command centers and missile launch pads, and the interception of 31 Ukrainian attacks in different areas. A statement from the Russian Ministry of Defense said that during the same period, the armed forces of the Russian Federation carried out 9 group strikes by long-range precision weapons and drones vehicles. The UN announced that 2,500 people have perished or disappeared while crossing the Mediterranean illegally to Europe since the beginning of the year. Addressing the UN Security Council about migrants in the Mediterranean, UN officials said that saving lives at sea and providing humanitarian assistance is one of the most basic obligations of humanity.
Just a day after EU ministers met in Brussels, 9 EU nations met today in Malta to resolve the same issue, the long-stalled migration reform, a reform that created rifts and disputes between several countries. Some breakthroughs have been made, but blocks remain. The meeting comes after the UN announced that more than 2,500 migrants died or disappeared while crossing the Mediterranean Sea since the beginning of the year.
All Mediterranean states must urgently step up search and rescue efforts and implement effective and predictable disembarkation mechanisms. Saving lives at sea and providing humanitarian assistance is one of the most basic obligations of humanity, and those performing rescue operations or helping in good faith should not be penalized for doing so.
At least 186,000 people have sought to make the dangerous crossing from North Africa, according to the UN Refugee Agency.
While significant attention is dedicated to deaths at sea, the stories shared by migrants suggest that several tragedies may be going unnoticed, especially during the crossing of the Sahara Desert. Despite the emergence of other significant migration routes in recent years, the central Mediterranean route remains the most dangerous.
More than 11,000 minors have crossed the Mediterranean Sea to Italy without their parents through migration routes since January 2023. Many children have gone missing or died while attempting to cross the sea to Europe, and those who survive the journey are held in reception facilities but then leave, putting themselves in further danger.
We learned that many of the unaccompanied foreign minors present in Italy leave the reception centers. Obviously, this puts them at great risk, and we know that this situation can obviously lead them to be exploited, but also to incur other risks, both to their health and to their development. We know that in their escape they travel many kilometers across Italy. They try in many cases to reach other EU countries.
The migrant catastrophe continues. The number of individuals drowning or going missing is on the rise, while the Mediterranean countries are at odds about how to handle the migration issue.
In Pakistan, a suicide attack during celebration of the Prophet's birthday in Balochistan province left at least 52 people dead and more than 50 wounded. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack. The Pakistani Interior Minister condemned it as a heinous act. The Deputy Inspector General of Police reported that the attackers detonated himself near the Deputy Commissioner of Police car close to a mosque where procession was gathering to commemorate the occasion. Many of the injured are receiving medical care, including surgeries with varying degrees of severity.
We have just arrived here at the trauma center in Quito. The patients are being given proper treatment. There are a number of deaths and injured, but they are being treated well. God willing, we will leave no stone unturned.
We have received 5 dead bodies and 38 injured here. Some of them are in critical condition, some are undergoing surgery. Many of the injured have fractured limbs.
In the same line of thought, Algeria condemned the suicide bombing that occurred on Friday near a mosque in Balochistan province, Pakistan, resulting in dozens of deaths and injuries. A statement by the Algerian Foreign Ministry affirmed Algeria's solidarity with the government and people of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan in this painful circumstance. The same source added that Algeria renews its complete rejection of all types of violence. In a severe address, President Joe Biden raises concerns about the state of American democracy, accusing Donald Trump and his supporters, particularly the Make America Great Again movement, of posing a significant threat to the nation's democratic foundation.
During a speech in Arizona, where he celebrated the upcoming construction of a library dedicated to the late Republican Senator John McCain, a vocal critique of Trump, President Biden emphasized the dangers he perceives in the current American political landscape. He underscored that Trump is more focused on personal power than upholding democratic values, and he expressed concerns about the broader impact of the MAGA movement on the nation's political system.
And there's something dangerous happening in America now. There's an extremist movement that does not share the basic beliefs in our democracy. The MAGA movement. Not every Republican, not even a majority of Republicans adhere to the MAGA extremist ideology.
Although the 2024 presidential election is still over a year away, Biden's focus on this issue underscores Trump's position as the clear first runner for the Republican nomination, despite facing legal challenges, including those related to his attempt to overturn the 2020 election's results. The president's speech is part of a series addressing threats to democracy, a crucial issue for his administration as he grapples with low approval ratings and age-related concerns from the electorate.
Democracy means rule of the people, not rule of monarchs, not rule of the money, not rule of the mighty. Regardless of party, that means respecting free and fair elections, accepting the outcome, win or lose. It means you can't love your country only when you win.
The chosen location for the speech, near Arizona State University, is significant as it houses the McCain Institute, named after the late senator who vocally criticized autocratic regimes worldwide.
And now more international news in this roundup.
China's defense ministry warned the U.S. on Thursday to quit meddling in the South China Sea dispute and damaging regional peace. Spokesman Wu Tian made the remarks at a regular press briefing when asked for comments on the Philippine Navy's use of 2 patrol boats donated by the United States to increase patrols in the already tense South China Sea. It's worth noting that these 2 patrol boats will perform missions such as escorting charter vessels to deliver supplies to the Renai Reef with Philippine Coast Guard vessels.
Spain's conservative leader Alberto Núñez Feijóo lost a vote to form a government, paving the way for socialist Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez to seek a controversial compromise with separatist groups to secure a new term. In a second vote on his candidacy in the 30-50-seat House, Feijóo received 177 votes against him and 172 votes in his favor, with 1 vote invalid.
In the tourism sector, Algerian Sahara has witnessed a large demand, whether from Algerians or foreign tourists. And the recent measures of the Algerian authorities related to tourist visas have contributed to increasing the number of foreign applications for tourists from many countries, with the start of the Sahrawi tourism season. Tourism has recently contributed to stimulating the economy. Youth institutions have increased their production, with Algeria increasing the number of hotel establishments which has had a positive impact on families and small enterprises.
World Rally Championship title contended Elvin Evans ended Friday morning with a Rally Chile lead after a chaotic loop that included frightening rolls for Lappi and Pierre-Louis Lobet. Evans guided his Toyota GR Yaris to 2 fastest times from the 3 stages to open up a 2.6 seconds lead over Hyundai's Timu as the World Rally Championship endured a spectacular return to South America's gravel roads.
Watch a drive. That was Sudisan. Thank you so much. Good night.